H.P. Lovecraft's name now sells video games, plush toys, and even inspires million-dollar movies, doesn't it? Yet, the man himself died broke, malnourished, and utterly convinced his life had been a failure. How does a kid who watched his family collapse in real time, who wrestled with profound social anxieties and a fragile mind, manage to turn that deep, personal pain into the very blueprint for modern horror? Stick around, because the answer, I think, is stranger than any tentacle god he ever imagined. It's a journey into the mind of a reclusive genius, a testament to how our deepest fears can become our most enduring creations. And don't forget to follow, like, and comment before we dive into the video. Your support keeps the dark tales alive. Howard Phillips Lovecraft entered the world in 1890s. Not with a whimper, but within the echoing halls of a sprawling Providence mansion, stuffed to the brim with Victorian pride and a sense of fading grandeur. His father, Winfield, a traveling salesman, began having terrifying hallucinations on the road and died in an asylum before the boy even turned 8. The official cause? General paralysis. In plainer, and perhaps crueler terms, advanced syphilis, slowly shredding the very fabric of his brain. Lovecraft's mother, Susie, already fragile, responded by clutching her only child like a precious, desperate life raft, dressing him in elaborate curls and, disturbingly, often calling him hideous. Can you imagine the psychological landscape of such a childhood? Grandfather Whipple Phillips, a wealthy industrialist, then became the substitute son of the boy's universe, a stable, if distant, presence who introduced him to the literature and ancient mythology. But even this anchor was temporary. In 1904, Whipple died, and with him, the family's remaining fortune evaporated overnight. The mansion, once a symbol of their heritage, was sold off. The furniture auctioned, and the family crammed into a cramped duplex. At just 14, Lovecraft's world, once so expansive, shrank dramatically, confining itself to two things: his beloved books and the boundless, indifferent night sky. He devoured Edgar Allan Poe, Nathaniel Hawthorne, and the new thrilling pulp magazines. Then stayed up late, mapping constellations he pronounced in his hushed whispers, convinced that speaking them aloud might tempt some unseen cosmic fate. The first nervous breakdown hit soon after, a profound withdrawal that forced him to drop out of high school, convinced his own face had become grotesque. For the next 5 years, he barely left the house, a solitary ghost haunting his own childhood memories, his mind already sketching the first, faint outlines of the dread that would later define his work. This period of intense introspection, though born of suffering, was also crucible, forging the unique lens through which he would later view the universe. By 1908, the Lovecraft family had hit bottom. His mother took conceiving to survive, barricading doors against intruders that existed only in her mind. The house was thick with fear and inherited madness. Lovecraft escaped through words, discovering Lord Dunsany's dreamlike tales and scientific journals that mapped the cold mechanics of the cosmos. Two worlds collided in his imagination: myth and math, wonder and dread. He began writing strange hybrids, half fairy tale, half astronomy lecture, sending them to pen pals he never met. Paper was his refugee, people were a threat. He'd rather stand on a trolley than brush against strangers. Yet inside this isolation, the first seeds of cosmic horror took root. The belief that humanity is a fungus on a speck, and the universe, vast and ancient, is utterly indifferent. He wrote that in a letter in 1912, years before the fame, already mapping the abyss that would define his work. In 1919, his mother died in the same asylum that had taken his father. At the funeral, he fainted, the last tie to his childhood severed. Then, at an amateur writing convention, he met Sonia Greene, vibrant, older, unafraid to call him Howard. They married in 1924 and moved to New York, where Sonia promised they would finally marry, but a city swallowed them whole. Her shop failed, his job applications were rejected. One editor scribbled 2 words across his resume. Overwhelmed by the city's chaos, his anxiety twisted into paranoia. In nightmares, he was chased through alleys by foreign faces, fears that bled into stories like the horror at Red Hook. By 1926, broke and broken, he left Sonia behind, packed a single suitcase and returned to Providence, carrying with him not truth, but a mind haunted by new monsters. Home again, Lovecraft lived in his aunt's decaying Victorian house. No job, no plan, only an obsession. He wrote as if exorcising demons, sometimes 10,000 words a night, filled by coffee and dread. In 1927 came The Color Out of Space, a story about a meteor that poisons the land with invisible madness. A year later, The Call of Cthulhu, a slumbering god whose mere thought unravels sanity. He sold it for $165, more money than he would make in months, and spent half on a used telescope so he could stare deeper into the dark he both feared and worshipped. These weren't pulp tales, they were philosophical warnings disguised as fiction. Humanity is small and knowledge is fatal. From 1928 to 1935, he built an interconnected universe of cosmic terror, what others would later call the Cthulhu Mythos. He wove it quietly, linking the Necronomicon, Miskatonic University, and alien gods like Yog-Sothoth, a breadcrumb trail into oblivion. Each story expanded the canvas, the Dunwich horror with backwoods rituals, at the Mountains of Madness revealing alien ruins in Antarctica, the shadow over Innsmouth, exposing humanity's monstrous kinship with the sea. At his battered Underwood typewriter, he turned family shame and personal neurosis into a philosophy of insignificance. Lovecraft didn't just write monsters, he wrote the terrifying truth that we might be the monsters. In 1936 came the last horror, intestinal cancer. He ignored the pain until it consumed him from within, a grotesque echo of his own stories. He spent his final months writing letters to young authors, encouraging them with the words that sound like his epitaph. I am not afraid of the dark, only of leaving it unexplored. He died in 1937, penniless and largely forgotten, buried beneath a headstone that reads, I am Providence. In death, he became what he always was, a voice whispering from the void. Lovecraft's afterlife dwarfed his mortal one. Without him, there would be no Alien, Stephen King, Stranger Things, or Bloodborne. His monsters became memes and plush toys, yet his philosophy remains terrifyingly pure. He weaponized insecurity. Every person has felt small, out of place, insignificant, exactly what is cosmic horror magnified. He proved that true horror isn't a ghost shouting boo, but the whisper that your life, your dreams might not matter at all, and that this, somehow, is beautiful. So the next time you feel like a speck in an uncaring universe, remember the men who turned despair into myth, because somewhere, under those same cold stars, Cthulhu is still waiting and watching.